Hi, and welcome back to the series. We are now down to the next episode in the series, which is about development communication. I'm Sir Siege. Let's begin. Hi, this is the Pro. In this video, we are going to aim at the following objectives. So the first among our objectives is to define development communication, and then you have to be able to know the purpose of development communication. You have to give characteristics of development communication, and then the last objective is for you to know the rights of, and actually the prerogatives as well, of communicators. Let's begin. The first thing we will be doing is an introduction, or we will be talking about is an introduction to development communication. If you are just like me, who was enrolled in Pampanga State Agricultural University, which is a state university here in Magalang, Pampanga, you're aware about the term development communication. Development communication is one of the courses that is being offered by PSAU. Particularly during my time, it was actually under the Institute of Agricultural Systems and Technology. I am just not sure kung ngayon is lumipat na siya. Ayan. So, it's a pretty familiar term for me. And when it was selected, or when it was included as one of the kinds of articles that we will be writing about in the publication in PSAU, I was not very surprised. Because PSAU is full of, it really has a rich system of research and development, extension and training. Ayan. Kaya talagang hindi ka na magtataka kung bakit meron kaming development communication page or spread sa aming mga broadsheets and sa aming mga magazines at sa aming mga newsletters. However, I think for you who is a campus journalist in a public, more or less a public high school or elementary school in the Philippines, siguro medyo hindi ka pa gaano familiar no about this. So let's talk about it. What is development communication? The government recognizes the crucial role of communication and information in bringing about people's participation in development. People's participation in development is something that we must be emphasizing here. Development communication is all about communicating, it's all about transferring, it's all about cascading recent developments to the people, informing them, pushing them to support such development, pushing them or encouraging them to open their hearts and minds that they will be accepting these kinds of development. Pero apart from that, actually, the development communicator is also tasked to channel, to make sure that there is a channel for the people, the beneficiaries, to raise their opinions, to raise their concerns in such developments. The democratization of communication and information process shall be upheld, and an increased participation in communication and information activities shall be encouraged, including expanded mechanisms for eliciting concerns, needs, and problems of the people, as well as their opinions on basic issues and programs. So, that was what I was talking about. Okay, so medyo maingay doon. Pero that was what I was talking about a while ago. Development communication is not just about telling the public about developments. It's also or like changes or progress or new projects. It's all about as well giving them a chance to be heard about such projects. Dapat marinig din natin kung ano yung mga concerns nila, ano ba yung mga comments nila regarding such projects, and how do we do that? In development communication, we have to give them an increased channel, an expanded mechanism para maibigay ng mga tao ang kanilang mga concerns at maiparating din yun dun sa mismo mga project implementors. Institutional structures and communication facilities will be centralized to broaden access of the citizens to communication and information. This quotation was quoted by Elena Q. Tanodra in her book Principles of Campus Journalism, and it actually was lifted from the 1987 to 1992 medium-term Philippine Development Plan. The next thing about development communication was by Wilbur Schumann. Wilbur Schumann is from the university. He was from the University of Hawaii, and he says of training in development communication as the following. So sinasabi niya that most thoughtful critics of training for journalism and news broadcasting feel that in the years to come, it will no longer be sufficient for an entrant to the profession to be able to write about anything. He must be also able to write with depth and understanding about something. That means to say, he will need a specialty in which he is substantially trained and able to interpret professional findings for lay readers. Sinasabi lang naman ni Wilbur Schumann dito is kung sino man ang gustong mag-enter sa profession ng journalism in the future, hindi na magiging qualified or hindi na magiging enough. Okay, hindi na magiging enough kung marunong siya magsulat ng mga articles about anything. Not like that. Kailangan whoever is in the future going to venture into journalism must be also able to write about a specific something, and that specific something must be something that the writer is substantially informed about or trained to talk about. Okay, so that was the point of Wilbur Schumann. Also, we have to also emphasize here the importance of interpreting professional findings for lay readers. Ikaw, as a writer, you may actually be so fond of using terms that are quite, ano bang term doon? Highfalutin ba? Okay, mga terms na ganun, mga expressions na napaka-idiomatic, no? And maybe you can maximize that when you are in creative writing. You may really use your elaborate communication style when it comes to creative writing, and I'm not actually limiting you from that, but Wilbur Schumann is telling you here that aside from or apart from being very from having or displaying a very wide array or a very good vocabulary, you have to be able to simplify professional findings. Kailangan alam mong i-interpret ang mga findings na napaka-komplikado, napakaraming mga jargons, napakaraming mga data, mga percentages. Kailangan marunong kang mag-interpret ng ganun, at kailangan yung pagkaka-interpret mo na iintindihan ng mga common na readers. Hindi lang yung mga readers na meron na rin sa parang kasing kahalintulad na training mo when it comes to writing. Kailangan, even though the reader is not really capable of understanding some words, kailangan ma-interpret mo pa rin sa kanila. Okay, so remember, that is the purpose of development communication. So, paano mo ma-achieve ang goal mo if yung mga ginagamit mong yung mga ginagamit mong words, halos ikaw na lang nakakaintindi, o kaya yung mga expressions na ginagamit mo, ikaw na lang nakakaintindi. Kaya sa hinahaba-haba ng mga sentences mo, napakarami niyang mga commas, napakarami niyang mga hyphens, hindi na na-gets ng mga readers mo kung ano ba talagang gusto mong sabihin. Okay, so that is the introduction for development communication. Let us now move to the definition of development communication. It is the art and science, although I doubt, this was actually lifted from Elena Q. Tanodra, but science kasi is quite different from an art. Okay, so since for the sake of our discussion here, I would like to just emphasize that development communication is the art of human communication that is applied to speedy transformation of the country and the mass of its people from poverty to a dynamic state of economic growth. Um, how will that happen? Speedy transformation ng isang bansa and the mass of its people, so hindi lang yung bansa, dapat pati yung mismo mga tao, ha? From poverty, from kahirapan, to a dynamic state of economic growth, to progress, that makes possible greater social equity and larger fulfillment of the human potential. It is the art daw of communication, at tapos ina-apply lang ang communication dun sa proseso ng progreso ng isang bansa. So, sinabi natin kanina that in the progress of a country, the implementors of the projects as well as the beneficiaries or the people must be connected. And how do we do that? We connect them through development communication. And in development communication, what do we do there? If there are new developments, if there are new researches, new ways of solving problems, new ways of farming, like say for instance farming, that must be communicated to the people. Kailangan malaman yun ng mga tao. Dapat may paintindi nating mga development communicators sa mga tao kung ano yung new technology na yun. And then, aside from that, kailangan din marinig din ng mga project implementers kung ano naman yung concerns ng mga mismong beneficiaries o ng mga tao. Kasi baka naman meron palang new farming technique, marami naman palang mga issues na mag-a-arise from the use of that new technology. Tapos yung mga farmers lang ang nakakakita nun. Each development, the pros and cons of any development, of any new thing, must be channeled from the implementors, researchers, to the people and beneficiaries. Kailangan there is this parang exchange between the two of them. Hindi lang yung meron ng kapangyarihang magsalita is yung mga project implementors. Hindi rin naman pwedeng puro na lang yung mga tao yung merong kapangyarihang magsalita. Okay, so the development communication is all about providing these two sides opportunities for them to be heard, and in the process, once nasa-settle kaagad-agad yung mga problema, yung mga issues na nag-a-arise, transformation from poverty, from a dynamic state of economic growth will be faster. Hindi yung magte-take pa tayo ng 10 years bago pa mismo maipaabot ng mga farmers sa mga project implementors yung problema sa technology na pinupush sa kanila down their throat. Okay? Hindi rin bibilis ang development natin kung aabutin pa ng like 15 years bago may paalam sa mga farmers ang isang napakagandang bagong technology when it comes to, say, harvesting corn or propagating rice. Ayan. My examples are very agricultural because I think as a development communication writer and in my training in PSAU, dyan ang pinakamalaking focus ng aming mga DevCom articles before sa farming. Ayan. Sa agriculture. Okay, so this one naman was lifted by Elena Q. Tanodra from Reading and Development Communication by Jamias, Juan F. From the University of the Philippines, Los Banos in 1977. And that is the definition of development communication for this discussion. Now let us talk about the purposes of development communication. The first one is to advance or to speed up development. At kanina sinabi ko na sa iyo, okay, pero syempre ulitin natin ngayon, that development procedures are usually between the beneficiaries and the researchers and project implementors. And our role as development communicators is to make sure that those beneficiaries, the people, are informed about new development. Okay? And we also have to make sure that the project implementers are also hearing certain feedbacks about the development or the technology that they are just actually field testing now. Okay, so if we keep that communication line open and if we assist these two in making sure that the development gets settled or gets empirical data the soonest time possible, development will be faster. Mas bibilis ang development natin. Development requires that a mass of people with a low rate of literacy and income, and the socio-economic attributes that go with it, be informed and motivated to accept and use a sizable body of unfamiliar idea and skills in very much less time than that process would normally take. In this part of Elena Q. Tanodra's discussion, ine-emphasize lang niya that the common tao, na ang mga tao, ang madlang people, they may not have a very an in-depth knowledge about whatever they are doing, and so they need the assistance of research. And research can it tends to be very complicated at times, right? Our task as development communicators is to make sure that the way we interpret these new technologies, these research-based technologies to the common people is comprehensive. Kailangan naiintindihan nila. Kailangan maiparating natin sa kanila ano ang pinaka-essence ng mga technologies na to and how do they work. We have to simplify everything for them so that they will be motivated to accept those new technologies. Kasi pag di nila ginagamit yon, they will resort to the old and more hassle, mas hassle na mga ways nila sa minsan mga old at saka mga very inefficient. So by saying inefficient, napakalaki ng energy input na kailangan, napakababa naman ng product output na makukuha. If they keep on resorting to those kinds of methods and they won't be accepting these new technologies, it will be partly the mistake or the fault of the development communicator. Kasi baka wala naman pala talagang parang mga downsides yung new technology. Hindi lang talaga natin naipaintindi sa kanila ng maayos. Okay, di natin naipaintindi sa mga farmers ng maayos. Ayan. They have to be capable of using whatever stock knowledge they have, and then we have to use their stock knowledge. We have to project their stock knowledge, and we have to bridge that stock knowledge with this new information. Okay, sinabi nga dyan, use a sizable body of unfamiliar idea, and that is like when they use it using their stock knowledge as a guide, and we have to guide them with that. Okay? Now, the task of the development communicator is the development itself. Okay, we have to speed up development. Yun yung aim mo, no? That is your aim. Your aim is not just to inform. Your aim is to make sure that development is not stopped. Development is a process. Kaya nga meant, diba? Development is a process. Well, I'm not sure about men, pero you know what I mean. You get what I mean. Development is a process. It has steps. Okay, and you as a development communicator, you are making sure that each step is taken, and that before we proceed to the next step, everything with the previous ones, they're all taken care of. Okay? Now we're done with the purpose of development communication. Let's now go to what development communication is and also what it is not. Development communication is not publicity per se. It does not aim for maximum media exposure for the sake of image building. It aims at stimulating public awareness and understanding of planned change. Okay, so understanding planned change at saka raising public awareness. Those are the aims. And the agencies promoting them to create a climate of acceptance that will enable that agency to work. Well, I would like to emphasize that even though what was said here was to promote a climate of acceptance, it's not always the case. Okay? though we are siding for development, we are not taking the side of the project implementors, the researchers. No, we're not taking their side. Our side is for development. Okay? We're not like just focusing actually on acceptance here. We are more on like promoting acceptance, depending on whether the development is something we should all be accepting. Okay, so that is our aim. That is our aim. It's not publicity per se. We're not just informing the public about a new technology. We're not just informing them about paano mangarbon ng mga coconut husks. We're not doing just that. Okay, we're doing something more than that. We will be promoting acceptance. We're going to inform them, pero we're also going to listen to what the beneficiaries have to say. Next naman is it's not simple mass communication. It can be an extension agency serving a population sector. It can also be actually conversation within the family. So when we see development communication, hindi lang siya nagta-take place sa mga radyo, hindi lang siya nagta-take place sa mga dyaryo. Nagta-take place din siya in so many different forms and sizes, and every walk of life can actually be a development communication conversation. Okay, so it activates all possible channels that will achieve its goals. Pwedeng small community talk, pwedeng extension siya, pwede rin naman na seminar, pwedeng training, pwede rin, yun nga, simple family conversation over dinner. Ayan, pwede yan. Pwedeng maging development communication yan. Next one is, it is a purposive chronicling of events. Hindi siya yung yung basta meron lang like very significant thing about the development, dun lang siya susulat. No. It follows any development news, any development story until it completes, or it gets completed, or until it gets rejected by the people, depending sa acceptance ng tao. Ang intention ng development communication is to promote development in all aspects and even in all levels. So even though it's just simple development in nursing, in medicine, it has to be covered by a development communicator. Now, if it's a very big breakthrough in medicine, like a cure for a particular disease that was otherwise incurable in the past, it has to be also covered by development communication. The next one is, it is a point of view. Okay, so when you look at developments around you, you have the eye of a development communicator. Writing about it's very easy for you. It simplifies the problem into a more understandable form for the people. It then overcomes the barriers in the achievement of the development goals. If halimbawa there is this development, like a literal development of land in any given barangay, like it's gonna be turned into a commercial land already. It was converted from an agricultural land to a commercial land by, say for instance, by someone, and it got the approval of the ENR. Now, that kind of change must be communicated to the people. Kailangan maipaintindi kung bakit ginagawa iyon, at kung sino-sino yung mga nagpapa-implement ng development na yon, yung pagtuturn sa kanya into a commercial land. Now, if there are things that are parang arising there, concerns, problems, ayan, that the people have, the beneficiaries have, they must be raising that too. Ngayon, ganito. Paano magkakaroon ng problema, paano magkakaroon ng mga problems, ng mga issues and concerns ang people, ang mass, kung di naman nila naiintindihan kung ano ang nangyayari. As a development communication, we have to be the very first people to understand what is happening. We always look at these things from a different kind of point of view. Okay? Development communication is that point of view. That is it for what development communication is and is not. Now, let's jump to the characteristics of development communication. Ang pinakauna is it's a process. I can't emphasize this further. It's not just news reporting. Kapag kasi news reporting, ang pinaka-concern lang natin dyan is kung ano yung interesting para sa mga tao, yun yung isusulat natin. O halimbawa, when the war was going on in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, we write about that because it's the kind of news that the public would like to hear about. O itong halimbawa mga ceremonies, parang mga acceptances, mga concessions na nangyayari nung elections. Since that is something that interests a greater number of Filipinos, that's what we're going to write about. News and event reporting is all about what the people find interesting. Yun, okay? The interest of the people is what you always have to put in mind. Yun yung uunahin mo. Bakit? Kasi halimbawa, in a commercial kind of paper, no, yung mga talagang sabihin natin Philippine Star, Philippine Daily Inquirer. I'm not like saying this is their main purpose, pero just think about it. If they want their papers to sell, if they want their websites to sell, they have to write about stories that people are actually interested to read about. Kailangan interesado ang mga tao sa mga stories na isusulat nila. Okay, so nagigets natin yung event reporting. Ano pa bang mga balita recently? Halimbawa, yung pagtaas ng presyo ng gasolina, yung sinasabi ng road to high honors na siya. Road to with high honors na daw siya. If you are writing for a commercial newspaper, syempre, if you want your website to get reads, to get views, to get a lot of views and reads, alam mo naman that yun yung issue ngayon. You have to write about it and make sure that when a person Googles it, your website is going to be one of the first 5 results in that search engine. And you have to be the very first one. Okay, so I hope nagigets mo yung ibig natin sabihin about event reporting because that is not what development communication is all about. Development communication is, yes, it will tell us something that will interest the public. Syempre, it might be new and it is something that is affecting the public, generally, development. But aside from just telling them what is happening, we are also focused on why is it happening and how it is happening. Bakit siya nangyayari? Bakit nagkakaroon ng ganyang klaseng development? Bakit merong tinetest out na solar farms sa iba't ibang parte ng bansa? Tapos paano na ginagawa yun, yung mga solar farms? Yung mga dating agricultural areas, kino-convert sila into a vast expanse of solar panels. O paano na nagagawa yun? Ngayon, yung mga people, yung mga farmers na dating nagsasaka doon, ano naman yung mga comments nila? Like, okay lang ba sa kanila na yung dating sinasaka nila? Ba, tinatamnan nila ng mais, ngayon tinatayuan na ng mga solar panels? Gets naman natin kung bakit tinatayo ng solar panels or solar farms yung areas na yun, gets natin, di ba? Pero we also have to keep in mind that there may be some concerns arising from that. Yung mga project implementors ng mga solar panels, lahat ng nakikita nila about their project is good, acceptable, okay, effective. Is that the same thing for the people who used to farm there? Is that the same thing? That is your work now, to verify what the people have to say. Okay, so again, the focus for development communication is what, why, and how something is happening. The second one naman is, it is in-depth investigative reporting. Actually, we already talked about this kanina. However, please be reminded that development communication and its investigativeness is just one aspect of it. No, it's only just one aspect of it. Yung pagiging investigative, it's just one aspect of it. Marami siyang aspeto. Take note that not all investigative reports can be development communication reports. Okay? Yung mga reports halimbawa about a particular crime, oo, investigative po yun, pero hindi po siya development communication. Okay? Halimbawa, mga crimes yan. O kaya halimbawa, mga iba pang mga stories that only tend to investigate about government funding, kung saan napupunta yung yung pera ng mga estudyante. I mean, those are not, development communication. That's not development communication. They are just investigative journalism outputs or articles. Investigative reporting emphasizes kasi or aims to emphasize kasi the why. Okay, so since why is one, again, sinasabi ko sa'yo, event reporting, investigative journalism. So, event reporting is what? Investigative journalism naman is why. And those are just two aspects of development communication kasi meron pa dapat how. Okay? Tapos meron pa yung aspect na kailangan, it's a kind of development na na-address yung project implementers and even the people and the beneficiaries. So, yeah. Now, it goes beyond fact and figure presentation because it also interprets, analyzes, and facilitates opinions from as many sources as possible. Okay. The next one naman, the third, is about mission-oriented reporting. Kinukuha niya yung side, okay, it's biased. Okay, development communication is biased, but it's slanted towards development goals. Okay, so yung bias niya hindi naman sa particular na isang tao lang o kaya isang sector lang ng ating lipunan. Ang kanyang kinikilingan ay yung development, ang progress. That is what it is slanted towards. And that should be also your goal. Your goal is to promote development. Okay? Okay. Now, we have to emphasize na ang development communication is not propaganda. Okay. Development communication is acting on facts. It's activated by facts, it's guided by facts, actual data from the people, their opinions being described into data, the project implementers providing the data. If the development, if the technology, if the new way of cultivating potatoes is really effective, the effectiveness is not based on opinions. It is based on facts. It's not just going to say it's effective or it's not effective. It's not just going to say it's detrimental to the society without any facts as basis. It wants the people, it wants the common person to understand what the new technology is all about, and it wants to listen to what the person has to say, so that those opinions can be made into facts and the project implementers will hear about it. Those did not come from the development communicator themselves. Those facts came from those two sides. The development communicator is only facilitating the communication. If anything, the development communicator is not very much involved in the article they are writing about. They are just this bridges, this channel, this facilitator, this enabler, so that communication is going to take place. Propaganda is different from that. Our side as development communicators kasi is towards development. That's why we're facilitating that. Our side is always for development. If the new technology is not good for development, we are against it. Okay? And it will appear because of the facts that we collected, not because of our opinion. If the new technology is harming a sector, a particular sector in the society, like say women, and interviewing women, it is apparent that they are getting affected by that kind of technology. We are against that technology. because it is what transpired from the data we collected. Even in Bao, even if we interviewed men, they still think that technology is not good, that development is not good because it is harming women. We are against it. And that is going to transpire only because of the data we collected. Yes, we're going to mention people who support that, the project implementors who support that. We will be mentioning their goals and objectives, their rationale. Why did they push through with that kind of development, even though with that kind of development? We're going to mention that. But we're also going to mention that that same kind of development that these project implementers are pushing for is actually not being approved by a particular sector. That is our task. So that the project implementers can make some adjustments, or they can totally eradicate that kind of technology or that kind of development. That is your task as development communicator. A propagandist, someone who is pushing for propaganda, is promoting blind following. The process of propaganda is very simple. From the top planners and decision makers to the people who don't really have like an idea yet what on earth they're reading about. In this sea of information, people tend, or a lot of us, with perhaps less education about information and how to discern whether what we're reading is true or not. A lot of us who are like that, who don't really have a tight grasp on truthful information, on facts. A lot of us who are like that, they fall for propaganda. Development communicators are deeply aware of their communities. They are very much aware about everything that is happening in their communities, and they promote as well critical thinking. A propagandist is promoting blind following. If a propagandist, a propaganda writer writes an article, it's all about in support of a project implementor. Walang mali dito sa power plant na to. Lahat ng mga bagay tungkol sa power plant na to, from the planning, the funding, the building, the location, it's all good. Not regarding any opinion, any other opinion aside from that. They are just promoting blind following. That people will just accept whatever they want people to accept. That is propaganda. Development communication, it provides greater access and participation from the people. It encourages the people to think about development. It encourages people to share their opinions about a particular development, not just accept it. On the other hand, propaganda is exploiting the mass of people who don't fully understand what they are promoting. Propagandists are again exploiting the people. They are not simplifying anything for the people, or maybe they're simplifying it, pero they're using words, they're using series of words that are, if you're gonna read about it, if you're gonna look at it from a bird's eye view, it's nothing but in support of the project implementors. And they are taking advantage of their power to communicate to make these people follow blindly. It's exploitative. Propaganda is elitist in nature. It only is concerned about a particular few, a group of people. Development communicators, tayo, we don't distort facts for us to gain wider acceptance from the people. Whatever the project implementers are promoting, whatever facts they're giving us, whatever we note as well from the data they gave us, we are just going to transfer that to the people. We're just going to communicate that to the people. And if the people find something wrong about that kind of development, we will also be including that. And in 1, 2, or a series of articles that is all about that kind of development, we will be settling everything. If the development gets adjusted, if parts of the development gets dropped, if parts of the development will be underfunded and some parts of it will be, ma-allocate doon yung fund na tinanggal from one aspect of it, that is going to be based on our articles, based on everything in our articles that are based from facts, data that we gathered, not just our opinions, or actually not our opinions. That is the third one. The next one, it is balanced reporting. I kept on emphasizing this. It is often mistaken for propaganda because it resembles development stories. Now, way back when I was still part of the Sinukuan Gazette, the official student publication of Pampanga State Agricultural University, this was, I think, one of our biggest mistakes in writing our development communication stories. Yes, we're only talking about development communication stories. We're not really particular. We're not really emphasizing anything about the impact of such a story to the beneficiaries. I remember I wrote an article before about Lotus, about the research on Lotus, and then I just focused on what the project implementers are promoting, are making out of the plant, and what I did not do was to talk about the actual beneficiaries who are going to use that kind of knowledge. So what now if Lotus leaves could be turned into soap? Who used that soap? Did I interview anyone? Do I have that kind of data to balance it out, to even it out? If the university is promoting the propagation of aglibot sweet, the variety of tamarind that is very much a product of Pampanga State Agricultural University, if they're promoting that, did I try talking to farmers? What are the downsides of propagating tamarind? Are there any? How will that affect the community? What did the community say about it? Ayan. So, we have to make sure that it's not just a development story. Kasi kapag nagsulat ka lang ng, halimbawa, nagsulat ka lang about mulberry, na ang university ninyo is nagtatanim na siya ng mulberry, meron na siyang research factory about that is intended for mulberry research. Yun lang ang sinulat mo, that is not development communication. Yun lang sinabi mo eh. You did not think about the what the opinions of the people who will be benefiting from that, mulberry farmers. What will they be getting from that? What are the benefits of planting mulberry? According to these people, not according to the project implementors, according to the people, the farmers. The next one, again, remember it's balanced reporting. Number 5, it promotes access and participation. Think about the people. You must make your readers realize kung gaano kaseryoso yung development problem. Kailangan mapag-isip mo rin sila about dun sa problem na yun at dapat ma-open mo rin sila sa mga possible na mga solutions. Hindi yung basta in-inform mo lang sila about the problems. Okay, tapos sige, move on na po kayo. Where you're not even encouraging them to participate. You're not even asking them to think about their practices and what they can do to help out with the development problem. Well, maybe you're just telling them na meron po tayong problema sa proliferation ng water hyacinth. Yung mga water lilies natin sa river, they're causing a lot of problems, like they're clogging the rivers. They are like catching the plastics na nag-flow sa river, and they're like, ayun, mas pinapaklag pa nila mismo yung river. Di lang sila yung nagpapaklag. They're also like looking for, or parang waiting for something to clog the river even further. And you're just informing them? That's it. If you are not going to encourage your readers to think about something like a solution for a development problem, you're not an effective development communication writer. Kailangan mapaisip mo sila ng ganun. What is their role in all of that? What can they do? The next one is that it operates within the framework of the freedom of information. Responsibility, according to Salvador P. Lopez, and freedom go together. Kapag halimbawa, puro na lang tayo freedom, that is going to lead to anarchy. Wala tayo. Puro lang tayo kalayaan. Puro lang tayo free to do whatever we want to do. That's gonna lead to anarchy, and nobody likes that. If we are all about responsibility naman, that's gonna be leading us to tyranny, which is also not good for us. The freedom of information, development communication, it is working within the framework of the freedom of information. We have duties and responsibilities. We also have freedom at the same time. The rights that we have as communicators is number 1, the right to access to information or source. Meron tayong kalayaan na mag-access ng mga public documents. Meron tayong kalayaan na mag-access ng mga human resources na kailangan nating interviewin. Ayan. Dapat, we keep that in mind. Huwag tayong mahihiya. At huwag tayong magiging tamad sa pagre-research. Okay? These sources of information are available for you, especially now, in this age na napakabilis na talaga, na sobra ng information, nagalaw ng information. The second one is we have the right to transmit information. Well, may mga information na may laya tayong ma-access pero wala tayong layang ipamahagi. Mga chismis. Halimbawa, we were told by a court na whatever we say inside the or actually not in the court. Pero if you're familiar with non-disclosure agreements or NDAs, that is their very essence. Like they may be in a room, in a boardroom, they may have the right to know about what is happening in the company, pero they do not have the right to transmit that kind of information to anyone. Okay, so may mga ganun. Pero as communicators, we have that right to transmit information. And then the last one is the right of interpretation or fair comment. I have the right to interpret whatever information we're transmitting. However, remember, just like in research, na mayroon ding interpretation, we always have to base our interpretations from the facts, from the data. And that ends the characteristics of development communication. There are several conditions for responsible press, and actually, this was supposed to have been given to you since nung una pa lang pero we are doing it now. I hope that it's not too late for us to talk about the following. The first one is to provide truthful, comprehensive, and intelligent account of the day's events and issues in a content which gives them meaning. Meron tayong ganong klaseng conditions, okay? Dapat totoo, dapat naiintindihan, at dapat base sa mga katotohanan, yung mga kinakwento nating mga nangyari sa buong maghapon. The next one naman is dapat makapag-provide tayo ng pagkakataon para sa mga tao na magkaroon na makapag-usap sa isa't isa, okay? A forum for the exchange of comments and criticisms thus regard themselves as common carriers of public discussions. The third one is dapat we project a representative picture of a constituent group in a society. We are communicators and we are a particular group in the society, and we have to make sure that that is the kind of identity that we have in that community. Okay? We are not fully part of a community. We are not fully part of the implementing partners of that community or the implementors, project implementers of projects in that community. We are in between and we are a distinct group in that particular picture. The fourth one is to present and clarify the goals and values of a society. We have to remind our society, yes, they tend to forget. We tend to forget as a society what our goals are, and we have to be one of the first people to remind them. And the last one is to provide full access to the day's intelligence. Every single information that have come to being sa buong maghapon, we have to make or to write a very comprehensive account of that. Okay, kaya nga sa mga news articles and any kind of news, okay, in campus journalism, napaka-importante rin talaga nung time. Okay, na kung saan, kailan sila nangyari, kailan sila mangyayari, ayan, and then, if you are not going to provide us with time background, it may be very difficult for your readers to relate to whatever you are writing about. Those are the 5 conditions for responsible press. And these were the objectives for this video lesson. So the first one is you should be able to define development communication, and then you have to know the purpose of development communication, which were also discussed a while ago. We were also given the different characteristics of development communication. At ang pinakahuli is you know the rights and the prerogatives of communicators. This is Sir CJ, ayan, and I am so happy that we got to have this discussion. Development communication is the very last spread of the broadsheet, the magazine and the newsletter that I managed when I was still in college, and it is actually quite close to my heart because of its closeness to science writing. Well, in as much as I want to include science writing that was discussed by Elena Q Tanodra in her book, I'm still in the process of reviewing the facts. And if halimbawa, I have decided that it is sufficient, the things that were discussed in her book were sufficient, we will be pushing through with that. Now, if not, we will be pushing for the next video sa ethics and laws of the press. Okay, that's what we're going to expect in our next video. Anyway, if you found this content to be helpful, why not give it a thumbs up and then maybe subscribe to this channel as well in support to its content. And I'm very happy that despite the fact that this channel has been around for so many years, it has received so much support from all of you. So thank you so much. This is Sir CJ. And I hope to see you in the next video.